The darkness over Leningrad Oblast on September 14, 2025 was primordial, a suffocating blanket of black broken only by a sliver of a waning moon. At precisely 2:20 a.m., in the desolation between the Stroganovo and Mshinskaya rail junctions, a lone figure moved with the silent economy of a predator. He was a ghost, a member of Ukraine's Skit 91 combat group, his features obscured by the baggy silhouette of a Russian railway maintenance uniform. The air was cold, thick with the scent of damp earth and creosote from the wooden ties. His gloved hands worked with surgical precision, clamping a directional explosive device to the steel rail fasteners. It was a small, unassuming package, yet it was the linchpin of an operation years in the making. The action was flawless, traceless. Within minutes, he had melted back into the skeletal fingers of the birch forest, leaving nothing behind but a promise of violence. 75 miles away, in a hidden command post buried deep within friendly territory, the ghost's work was confirmed in the silent, ghostly glow of thermal imagery. The Ukrainian reconnaissance team watched, their faces illuminated by the high-resolution feed. The signal wasn't broadcast, it was a whisper of light carried through a fiber-optic cable thinner than a human hair, spooled out by a loitering UAV. This was untraceable, a phantom nerve connecting the hunters to their prey, generating zero electromagnetic emissions. On the screen, the thermal world was stark and brutally honest. The diesel locomotive, a steel behemoth, pulsed with a latent heat of 115 degrees F. Behind it, a serpent of 15 tank cars radiated a uniform, steady warmth. Thermal output does not lie. Every car was full to the brim, a rolling pipeline carrying over 2.2 million pounds of diesel fuel, the lifeblood for 3 Russian armored brigades. This was no ordinary supply run. This was the Gatchina Express, the last reliable ground artery feeding the strategic defensive belt south of St. Petersburg. After Ukrainian partisans had successfully sabotaged 3 key road bridges near Luga earlier that month, the Luga-Gatchina Railway had become Russia's final, fragile lifeline. Sever it, and the southern defensive ring would starve. The plan was a masterclass in modern warfare, woven from a tapestry of intelligence. Local informant networks, using encrypted burner phones, had provided the initial whispers. These were cross-referenced with GSM signal leakage from a Russian logistics relay station, where SIGINT technicians had painstakingly captured and decrypted data packets. This digital harvest was then layered over commercial satellite imagery, building a complete, terrifyingly accurate picture of the train's entire existence. Departure times, average cruising speeds, crew changeover points, even the brief, seemingly random halts at secondary checkpoints. It was all digitized, a ghost schedule overlaid onto a tactical map. This intelligence was the reason Skit 91 knew exactly where and when to plant the charge. The trap was two-phased, a hard stop, fast kill doctrine. The directional mine was never meant to obliterate the convoy. Its purpose was far more insidious, to cripple, to wound the beast and force it to a halt within a pre-selected kill box, a known dead zone in Russia's air defense network. As the train thundered less than 7.5 miles from the ambush point, a disguised truck, concealed for days in a dense patch of forest, pulsed a single encrypted command. From the shadows, 4 FPV drones ascended in a wide, silent arc. These were not commercial toys. They were purpose-built killers, their frames reinforced to carry PG-7VL anti-armor warheads. Their cameras boasted a 56x digital zoom. Their data links were hardened against jamming, and their engines could sustain cruise speeds of over 110 miles per hour. They climbed, circling like vultures, awaiting a kill. UAV 1, designated target, car number 3. UAV 2, designated target, car number 9. UAV 3, designated target, car number 13. UAV 4, the closer, held altitude, its target the locomotive itself, waiting for the final command. Inside the locomotive's cab, the world was mundane. The train chief, a veteran named Mikhail, monitored the engine oil pressure, his eyes tracing the familiar green lines on the display. Beside him, his co-driver, Sergei, scanned the brake pressure gauges. All parameters were normal. A false sense of security, thick as the night outside, filled the cabin. They were hauling a strategic asset, cloaked in secrecy, but they were blind and deaf to the digital specters that had been stalking them for days. At 2:50 a.m., the train entered the kill box, an open corridor of meadow flanked by sparse woodland. Speed, a steady 27 miles per hour. The Ukrainian recon feed confirmed it. No radar returns, no active jamming, no battlefield coordination signals from any Russian units within a 15-mile radius. In the command center, a single line of text flashed on the main screen. Status, tactically isolated. The message was relayed. Fire conditions confirmed. Instantly, the command post transformed. Ambient green lighting shifted to a blood-red attack state. On 4 separate screens, the UAV operators saw their targets lock. Guidance vectors flashed across their displays, plotting approach paths in real time. A countdown appeared. 60 seconds, 50, 20, 10. At exactly 2:51:44 a.m., the lead wheel of car number 3 rolled over the rigged section of track. A pressure sensor beneath tie number 9 registered the immense weight. For 0.4 seconds, a circuit held its breath, then closed. A daisy chain of small charges detonated in a blistering sequential rip. The blast wasn't a Hollywood fireball. It was a focused, brutal force. It sheared the steel rail fasteners, buckled the rails into grotesque angles, and tore the heavy wooden sleepers from the ballast bed like rotten teeth. Nearly 1,000 feet of track vanished into instability. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. Cars 4 through 11 slid off their alignment, their wheels digging into the loose rock, throwing up a shower of sparks. The entire 2-million-pound train lurched violently, a monstrous shudder running down its steel spine. Inside the cab, Mikhail was thrown against his console, barely managing to slam the emergency brake. Sergei hit the alarm as compressed air hissed furiously down the length of the convoy. The shriek of metal on metal was a sound from hell. At 2:51:50 a.m., the derailment was complete. Car number 4 tilted, its massive weight pulling the cars behind it into a diagonal collapse. Steel couplers, designed to hold tons, twisted and snapped like twigs. Tanker shells slammed into one another with percussive booms and fuel hatches burst open. The locomotive was wrenched sideways, its front plowing deep into the earth. The train lay broken, a wounded animal, bleeding diesel onto the cold ground. The crew stumbled from the twisted cab, their ears ringing, their minds reeling, completely unaware that the real attack was only just beginning. This was the moment Ukraine had engineered. No guard posts for 12 miles. The nearest village was a distant smudge of light. No air defense, no rapid reaction force. Only the finishing blow. At 2:52:40 a.m., the FPV drones began their terminal dives. UAV-1, call sign Vandal, screamed towards car number 3. It dropped to 100 feet, its camera shaking in the low-level turbulence. The operator, his knuckles white, made 3 sharp manual corrections. Attack range 150 feet, dive angle 24 degrees. The reticle held steady on the tanker's flank. 2 seconds later, impact. The PG-7 VL warhead pierced the steel skin. Atomized diesel fuel vaporized and exploded in a massive roaring blossom of fire that shot 80 feet into the sky. The blast wave kicked the adjacent car off its ruined tracks. At 2:52:50 a.m., UAV-2 Reaper approached from the southeast, targeting the convoy's heart, car number 9. The aim point was a weld seam just below the relief valve. The shaped charge punched through the tank wall, leaving a neat 3-inch hole before the inferno erupted from within. A full secondary explosion followed, a concussive whomp that ignited cars 8 and 10. The center of the train became a single solid wall of fire, with thermal readings spiking past 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit. 3 seconds later, UAV-3 Stinger was on its run. Dive angle 28 degrees, speed 107 miles per hour. The camera was rock steady. It slammed into car number 13, ripping it open. Fuel sprayed outward, igniting in midair and showering the rear cars in liquid flame. The train was now 3 distinct raging pyres. At 2:53:20 a.m., UAV-4 Judge still hovered, its warhead armed. On the ground, the fires were spreading and dense, oily smoke was beginning to obscure the view. From the control station came a single cold command: finish it. Judge dropped to 130 feet, its optics locking onto the crippled locomotive. It dove at a 25-degree angle, accelerating to 110 miles per hour. The warhead punched through the engine's 0.8-inch steel housing. A 0.3-second delay fuse gave it just enough time to penetrate before detonating. The explosion was not large, but it was surgical. The engine block shattered. The drive shaft split. The transmission was pulverized into shrapnel. The entire locomotive was dead forever. By 2:55 a.m., the convoy was a corpse. The reconnaissance UAV streamed its final images, a 1,000-foot stretch of blazing wreckage, with smoke churning thousands of feet into the air before its fiber-optic line was commanded to self-destruct. The team packed their gear, wiped the data mission, and vanished as completely as the operative in the woods. The aftermath was a scene from a Bosch painting. For less than $10,000 in operational cost, Ukraine had annihilated a target worth over $3.5 million. But the strategic cost to Russia was incalculable. By morning, Russia's Ministry of Transport issued a predictably bland statement: a technical malfunction and track failure. No casualties. The cars were empty. But satellite imagery and videos from nearby villages told the truth. The smoke plume stretched for miles. The thermal scars on the landscape were visible from space. For 3 critical days, the southern Leningrad supply line was severed. Armored brigades were forced to reroute through exposed secondary lines, stretching Russia's already thin air defense grid to its breaking point. It wasn't just fuel that was lost in the fire. It was momentum. It was security. It was the rhythm of the Russian war machine. Across Western military forums, the analysis was swift and brutal. 4 FPV drones and a mine just burned an entire supply route. This is the new face of war. Russia lost a train, Ukraine spent the cost of a used car. As dawn broke over Leningrad, the wreckage still smoldered, a monument to a new kind of warfare. It was a message, written in fire and smoke across the Russian sky. No rail line was safe. No train could sleep through the night. And for every steel beast that rumbled down the tracks, a ghost was now watching from the wires.